So I had a request from my last video on the twisted bar to create a model and show how this is going to be set up to control it through a global parameters file. So as I took a look at that, I've come up with a new way of creating a model of this that's, I think, going to be a little bit easier, and especially for driving it with the parameters of the GLP. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I've got to start a sketch here on the XY plane. And I'm going to start with a line in the center coming off of the origin. And then on each end of this line, I'm going to put a tangent arc. And just sketch in a little arc on this end and on this end. And then finish off with a line on the end of each arc. And then we'll apply some constraints here. So first thing we're going to do is put in some equal constraints on the arcs for the bend radius, and on the lines for the tab lengths. We need a tangent between the arc and the line on each end, and then we need a parallel between these two lines that are going to be our legs on the bar. So now these are going to be all equal and they track evenly. Okay, now let's add some dimensions. So we'll start here with an angle, and we'll put this in at 45 degrees to begin with. We've got a radius in here. We'll put this at 0.5. And then a length on this line, we'll do this at 1. And then our final dimension is going to be from this line to this line. So we end up with a height on our part that we can drive our bracket height. So now once we have all this set up, now it's a matter of creating our twisted bar over the top of this sketch. So let's deactivate this sketch, and we'll start our first sketch here on the YZ plane, and this is going to be a rectangle. And I'm going to put a midline constraint from this top line to the origin, and then some dimensions. So I have not an angle, I need this, put this at 1, and then this will dimension at 0.125, and then we'll go to our helix tool, and our axis is, we're going to grab our axis, and then changing our height and pitch, we're going to go to height and revolutions. So, whoop, I forgot one dimension here. Let me back up. Go back to sketch 1. We need a dimension for this line. Now this is going to be a parameter that's going to drive the length of our helix. So now let's deactivate that. Go to sketch 2, edit this. Now we can go into our helix tool, select our axis, change this to height and revolutions, change our revolutions to 0.5, and our height, we'll hit the FX button, and we'll go to our driven dimension, D7, and OK that. Okay, now we can go up here and we'll grab our little circular pattern, select our part, change this to instances of 2, get our center, and that creates our full thickness bar that's twisted 1/2 turn. So now the next is going to create our leg on each end. So here we'll grab a sketch on this end face, and then we'll just select this face, project to sketch, select maintain association, and then we're done with that. And then we're going to grab a sketch on this XY, and here we'll grab our project to sketch tool and select this arc from our skeleton sketch. Maintain, it's going to be a sketch figure, and we're going to maintain association and OK that. And then deactivate our sketch. We'll go to our sweep, and we want to sweep sketch 3 along sketch 4, and then we're done. Then we go to the opposite end, and we'll just kind of repeat the same process, except what I'm going to do here is I have run into some problems where if I do a project to sketch here, that when I'm changing material thickness, it'll sometimes lose the reference on this sketch here, just using a project to sketch on this end face. So I'm going to use a sketch rectangle, and I'm going to put some collinear constraints on the long sides, and then on the ends I'm going to do coincident from the end nodes of the rectangle to the end node of the reference geometry, and that takes care of that. Then back on the XY plane again, another sketch, and project this arc and this line, maintain the association, and again we'll do a sweep. This time we're sweeping 5, sweep sketch 5 along sketch 6, and click OK. So that completes the part, and it's all going to be driven by the parameters in sketch 1. Now I took the liberty of going ahead and creating my global parameters file. So if I look in the folder, open the file, this global parameters file has all the parameters we're going to need to drive this bracket, as far as our height, the bend radius, bend angle, the thickness, the turns on our helix, the leg length, and our thickness and width of the bar itself. So let me go back in now. Since we've got that created and the parameters are copied into the equation editor, now what remains to do is link all these dimensions to these parameters. So let me go back to our sketch. We'll edit our sketch and bring up our global parameters file. Let me just shrink it down here a little bit so we see what's going on. So we'll start off here with our angle, and we'll hit FX, go into our equation editor, and we want a bend angle. Click OK, and now that copies into this dimension. Want our bend radius, hit FX, and we want our bend radius, and that's copied in. Okay, and then we have our length of our leg, same thing, and here we have our leg length, and OK that. And then now this is going to be kind of interesting, because this dimension is actually going along the center line of the twisted bent bar. So in this case, I've got a parameter that is the sketch bracket height. And I'll link that to this sketch dimension. Okay, so we'll got everything linked up here. Now we can go here to our boss helix 1, and what we want here is our sketch 2, and here we want to link our bar width, And then here we want our thickness. So we have our thickness here at 250, but our part is only a half thickness. So we'll link that here. And we got that being driven here now. And now one more thing here, helical boss, edit this. We got our height, we want our revolutions. We go in here, we go to our helix turns, and we'll link that. Okay. Now, I think we have all of our parts, all of our dimensions linked up. So if we bring up our global parameters file here, let me just resize it here to make sure we can see everything. And we'll start modifying the parameters in the file, update everything to see how it works on our part here. So our first test, let's just say helix turns. Let's change this to say 1 turn, and then click the update designs. And bingo, it updates to 1 turn. Change our bend angle, bend radius. Let's increase our bend radius to 0.75 and update this. And it increased the bend radius. Get our leg length. Go to 2.5. And if we click on that, we're at 2.5. Now remember, the angle and bend radius is actually the center line. So if you wanted to have an inside radius of 0.5, then you'd have to add some more equations in here to adjust the bend radius so that you're taking into account the half thickness of the part. So at any rate, this gives you a one more here. We got a bend bracket height. We're at 5 inches. Let's just take a peek here and see what is our height. So if we click on this angle and this face here, that's going to be a line to line. So let's do this. We'll come in and grab a sketch, and we're going to project this line, and we'll project this line, and we'll throw a dimension on here, and then we have 5 inches. So now if we go back in our global parameters file, we can deactivate this sketch, deactivate this, go to our bracket height. Let's change this to 6.5 and click update, and then we'll check our dimension here on this sketch, and we're at 6.5. So this gives you an example of how to create a twisted bar design and driving with your global parameters file. And it's actually, I think, a better design methodology than I have illustrated on the other methods. So anyway, I hope this helps out. See you in the next one.